I died on a Tuesday. Not the kind of death that makes headlines. Not the kind anyone mourns. I died on a cold hospital floor, 3 floors below the maternity ward where my wife was holding her newborn son with another man. Her first love, her Alistair. I remember the linoleum. Cheap, gray, the kind that peels at the corners. I remember my cheek pressed against it, too weak to lift my head. My body was shutting down, and I didn't understand why. I had come to the hospital to confront her, to demand answers, to look her in the eye and ask how she could do this to me after 7 years of marriage. I never made it to her room. A needle in the stairwell, a hand over my mouth, a voice I didn't recognize telling me to stop fighting. And then the hallway, the cold, the slow creeping numbness that started in my fingers and moved inward, claiming my arms, my chest, my heart. I saw her, at the end of the hallway. The doors to the maternity ward opened for a split second, and there she was, Celine, my wife. Her blonde hair was loose around her shoulders. Her hospital gown was pale blue. She was holding a bundle wrapped in white, and she was smiling. Not at me. She didn't see me dying on the floor 50 feet away. She was smiling at the man beside her, Alistair Crane, her first love, the father of her child. They disappeared through the doors, and I died alone. The last thing I heard was my own heartbeat slowing down. The last thing I thought was, I gave her everything, my company, my savings, my reputation. I signed every paper she put in front of me because I trusted her, I loved her, and she used that love to destroy me. The last thing I felt was cold, and then nothing, until now. My eyes opened to fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. I was sitting on a bench outside St. Catherine's Hospital, the same entrance, the same cold November air biting through my jacket. I knew this bench. I had sat on this exact bench in my last life, staring at my phone, reading the message Celine had sent me from her hospital bed 3 floors above. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking, not from cold, from memory. I was alive. I was whole. I was back. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I knew what it was before I looked. I knew because I had lived this moment already. I knew because in my last life, this was the moment my world ended, the message that broke me, the message that made me sign away everything in a fog of grief and self-hatred. I pulled out my phone and read the screen. Celine, the baby is not yours. He is Alistair's. The divorce papers are on your desk at home. Sign them. Don't come to the hospital. Don't make a scene. We're done. You owe me at least this much after 7 years of holding me back. In my last life, I read those words and cried. I called her 17 times. I begged. I drove home and signed the papers because I thought I deserved it, because she had spent years convincing me I was never good enough for her. And finally, I believed it. This time, I read the words and felt something else entirely. A cold, clear pressure formed behind my eyes. Not anger, not pain. Something sharper, something that felt almost like relief. She didn't know who I really was. She didn't know about Black Holdings. She didn't know about the 200 shell companies I had built over the past 5 years while she was too busy planning her affair to notice I was planning something else entirely. She didn't know that the husband she considered a failure had quietly become the largest single shareholder in Voss Real Estate Group, her family's company. I had been waiting, not for her to come back to me, not for her to love me. I had been waiting for the right moment to reveal everything, the moment when it would hurt the most. And she just handed me that moment on a silver platter. A second message appeared on my screen. This one wasn't from Celine. It wasn't from any contact I recognized. The sender ID was blank. The message was 4 words, unknown. The black archive activates. My phone screen flickered, went dark, flickered again. When it came back on, everything looked different. A new interface had replaced my home screen. Black background, white text, clean, cold, official, at the top, in a font that looked like it belonged on government documents. A header read, the Black Archive System, file. Dorian Black, status, active. Below it, 3 options appeared: betrayal, ledger, view all recorded betrayals against the host, asset tracker, track all transferred, hidden, and stolen assets, truth unlock, reveal hidden information about any individual connected to the host's betrayal. 3 uses per day. I stared at the screen. In my last life, I would have thought I was hallucinating. I would have assumed the stress had finally broken me, but I had already died once. I had already felt the cold of that hospital floor and watched my wife smile as my heart stopped. I was past the point of doubting impossible things. I tapped the first option. The betrayal ledger opened. Lines of text scrolled across the screen. Dates, times, locations, every single betrayal Celine and Alistair had committed against me, cataloged with the precision of a forensic accountant. March 14th, Celine Voss and Alistair Crane exchanged 47 messages discussing the transfer of Dorian Black's company shares. Key phrase: he'll sign anything if I tell him it's for us. June 2nd, Alistair Crane opens 3 shell corporations under falsified names. Purpose: receiving stolen assets from Black Construction Group. September 19th, Celine Voss forges Dorian Black's signature on a power of attorney document. Witness: notary public Marcus Webb, bribed. November 3rd, Alistair Crane contacts unregistered associate regarding permanent solution for Dorian Black. Payment discussed, $50,000. November 3rd. Today was November 3. They were already planning to kill me. I felt my jaw tighten in my last life. That plan had succeeded. The stairwell, the needle, the cold floor, they had killed me, and they had gotten away with it. I closed the betrayal ledger and opened the asset tracker. A web of lines appeared on the screen, nodes and connections. My company, my accounts, my properties, all of them showed transfer paths leading to Alistair's shell corporations. The system had already flagged every illegal transaction and generated a complete evidence package. One tap. That was all it would take to send everything to the authorities, but I didn't tap it. Not yet. Revenge wasn't about speed. Revenge was about timing. If I exposed them now, Celine would lose some money. Alistair would face some charges. They would be embarrassed, angry, but they wouldn't be destroyed. They would still have each other. They would still have their child. They would still believe their story. I wanted them to lose everything. I wanted Celine to find out what it felt like to be discarded. I wanted Alistair to watch his entire life collapse while he stood in the exact spot where he had watched me die. And most of all, I wanted them to destroy each other. I opened the third option, Truth Unlock. A search bar appeared. A single prompt, enter name. I typed, Alistair Crane. The system processed for 3 seconds. Then the screen filled with information. Alistair Crane. Truth reveal. Known associates. Celine Voss, affair partner. Karina Vance, secretary, mistress. Current. Hidden assets. None. Net worth is fabricated. All assets are stolen or leveraged through fraudulent loans. Personal debt. $4.7 million. Critical hidden truth. Subject is not the biological father of the child currently registered to Celine Voss. The biological mother is Karina Vance. The child was conceived 4 months before subject reinitiated contact with Celine Voss. Purpose: use the child as leverage to control Voss family assets. Celine Voss is a surrogate. She does not know. I read that last line 3 times. The child was not Alistair's. The child was Alistair's secretary's. Celine had carried another woman's baby. She had betrayed me, destroyed our marriage, and thrown away everything we built together for a man who was using her as an incubator. I almost laughed. Almost. Then I opened my messages and typed a reply to Celine. Dorian, you're right. The baby is not mine. I paused. Let her read it. Let her feel that moment of victory. Then I added, Dorian, but he's not Alistair's either, before sunrise. You will receive a paternity test. Read it carefully. Pay attention to the biological mother's name. Then, ask yourself, whose baby did you just give birth to? I hit send. 30 seconds passed. Then my phone rang. Celine. I let it ring. It rang again and again. 7 calls in 2 minutes. Then the text messages started flooding in. Celine. What are you talking about? Celine. Dorian. This isn't funny. Celine. You're lying. You're just trying to hurt me. Celine. Answer your phone. Celine. Who is the mother? Dorian. Who is the mother? I turned off my phone. Then I stood up from the bench, walked to the parking garage, and got into my car. Not the modest sedan Celine thought I drove. That car was for appearances. The car I drove tonight was a black Mercedes S-Class, registered to a holding company she had never heard of. I had a lot of work to do. The next 3 hours were quiet, methodical, satisfying. First, I called my attorney. Not the family lawyer Celine knew about, my real attorney, Marcus Webb. The same notary public who had been bribed to witness my forged signature was about to have a very bad night. My legal team had been building a case against Alistair for months, gathering evidence of fraud across 5 different cities. The system had just filled in the missing pieces. Second, I called my team at Black Holdings. I gave them 3 instructions. Lock every share of Black Construction Group in my name. Issue a mandatory freeze on all asset transfers. And deliver an acquisition offer to the Voss Real Estate Group Board of Directors by 9 a.m. The Voss family owned 43% of their own company. Black Holdings already held 42%. The remaining 15% was scattered among minority shareholders who had been quietly selling to my shell companies for the past 18 months. By the time the board meeting started, I would have controlling interest. Third, I called a private investigator I had retained 6 months ago. He had been following Karina Vance since August. The paternity test was already done. The results were already in my possession. I had been waiting for the right moment to use them. That moment was now. I instructed him to deliver the results to Celine's hospital room, not digitally, not through a lawyer. Personally, I wanted her to see a stranger's face when she learned the truth. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't a lie. This wasn't a trick. This was a reckoning she had never seen coming. By 3 a.m., everything was in motion. I parked outside a building in the financial district. Black Holdings' executive office took up the top 3 floors. I had never been here. Not once. I had run the entire operation remotely, through intermediaries and encrypted communications. For 5 years, the staff knew the company had an owner. They had never seen his face. Tonight, that changed. I walked through the lobby. The night security guard looked up, ready to stop me. I held up my phone. The Black Archive system displayed a digital keycard with my name and a title that made the guard's eyes widen. Founder and Executive Director, Black Holdings, sir, he said, straightening up. I wasn't informed. You weren't supposed to be. I need access to the executive floor. No announcements, no notifications. No one knows I'm here. He hesitated for exactly 1 second. Then he nodded and handed me a physical access card. I took the elevator to the 52nd floor. The executive suite was empty at this hour, dark, silent. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city skyline. In the distance, I could see the lights of St. Catherine's Hospital. I stood at the window and watched those lights for a long time. Somewhere in that building, Celine was holding a baby that wasn't hers. Somewhere in that building, Alistair was probably telling her I was crazy, lying, trying to manipulate her. And somewhere in that building, a private investigator was about to knock on a hospital room door. I checked my watch. 3:47 a.m. The system interface flickered in my peripheral vision. Revenge reward. Stage 1. Status. Unlocked. New. Permissions granted. Full access to all Black Holdings liquid assets. $340 million. Control of Voss Real Estate Group voting shares. Currently 42%. Pending majority acquisition. Evidence package. Alistair Crane's 5-city fraud operation. Ready for submission to federal authorities. Next stage condition. Complete acquisition of Voss Real Estate Group. Revenge rating must reach critical mass before Stage 2 rewards unlock. I dismissed the notification. Money was useful. Control was useful. But what I really wanted was something the system couldn't give me. I wanted to see Celine's face when she realized the truth. I wanted to watch Alistair's composure crack when he understood that the man he had dismissed as a nobody was actually the one pulling every string. I wanted them to know, and I wanted to be there when they did. My phone buzzed. A message from the private investigator. PI. Delivery complete. She opened it. She's screaming. The hospital staff had to sedate her. Alistair left the building 10 minutes ago. Looks like he's running. I smiled for the first time since I had died. Running was not an option. I had already made sure of that. The sun rose over the city at 6:42 a.m. I was still standing at the window when my phone rang. Not Celine this time. A number I recognized. Charles Voss, Celine's father, the patriarch of Voss Real Estate Group. The man who had spent 7 years treating me like a stain on his family's reputation. I let it ring twice before answering. Dorian. His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. We need to talk, immediately. Charles, I said. Good morning. You received the acquisition offer, I assume. Silence. Then, that was you. That's me. Black Holdings. I founded it 5 years ago. I own it outright. And as of this morning, I own 42% of your company. By noon, I'll have 51. You can either cooperate with the transition, or you can fight it. The outcome will be the same either way. More silence. I could hear him breathing. I could almost hear him replaying every condescending comment he had ever made to me. Every dinner where he had reminded me I wasn't good enough for his daughter. Every meeting where he had dismissed my business ideas as small-time thinking. Dorian, he said finally, we're family. No. Charles, we're not. As of tonight, Celine and I are divorced. She chose Alistair. She chose to carry his child, or, rather, the child she thought was his. Did she tell you about that? Did she tell you the baby belongs to Alistair's secretary? I heard a sharp intake of breath. She didn't tell you. I continued. Of course she didn't. She probably didn't tell you about the forged signatures either, or the asset transfers, or the plan to have me killed. Your daughter and her lover have been very busy, Charles, and now you're going to pay for it. Dorian, please. The board meeting is at 9 a.m. I'll see you there. I hung up. The system interface flickered again. Truth unlock. Usage 2 of 3. Subject, Charles Voss. Hidden truth, $12 million in undisclosed debt. Voss Real Estate Group is 3 months from bankruptcy. Subject has been hiding financial statements from the board for over a year. Alistair Crane was aware and planned to use this information to force a sale. Another piece of the puzzle. Alistair hadn't just been planning to take my company. He had been planning to take the entire Voss empire. Celine was his way in. The baby was his leverage. And she had handed him everything on a silver platter, just like she had handed me the divorce papers. She thought she was his partner. She was his mark. I pocketed my phone and walked out of the executive suite. The city was waking up. Traffic was starting to fill the streets. And somewhere out there, Alistair Crane was trying to figure out how his perfect plan had fallen apart. He didn't know the half of it yet. The board meeting was in 2 hours. I had just enough time to get changed. System notification. Revenge progress. 35%. Key targets remaining. Alistair Crane. Active evasion. Federal warrant pending. Celine Voss. Hospitalized. Psychological collapse in progress. Charles Voss. Awaiting board meeting. Financial ruin imminent. Next critical event. Voss Real Estate Group emergency board meeting. 9:00 a.m. Warning. Alistair Crane has accessed emergency funds, attempting to flee the country. All airports and border crossings flagged. Estimated capture window. 6 to 8 hours. Advice. Maintain pressure. Do not reveal full hand until all targets are in the same room. In notification, I changed into a dark gray suit. Brioni. Tailored 3 years ago for a man I hadn't become yet. The fabric settled across my shoulders like armor. I stood in front of the mirror in the executive washroom and looked at my reflection. Different man. Different eyes. The old Dorian would have been on his knees by now, begging, crying, writing long, desperate emails explaining how much he loved her, how he could forgive her, how they could work through this together. The old Dorian had done exactly that in my last life, sitting in a dark kitchen at 3 in the morning, signing away company shares while tears dripped onto the paper. This man in the mirror didn't blink. I straightened my cuffs and checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Celine's number, 4 from Charles Voss, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably hospital staff. Probably Alistair using a different phone. I ignored all of them. The time for talking was over. The time for action had already begun. At 7:15 a.m., I walked out of Black Holdings headquarters and into a city that had no idea how much had changed overnight. The drive to Voss Real Estate Group's headquarters took 20 minutes. I used every one of them. The black archive system interface hovered at the edge of my vision, no longer confined to my phone. It had integrated. I didn't know how. I didn't care. What mattered was the information it was feeding me. Alistair Crane. Movement tracking. 7:02 a.m. Departed St. Catherine's Hospital via emergency exit. 7:14 a.m. Access safety deposit box at First Mercantile Bank. Contents: $200,000 cash, 3 passports, United States, Canada, Belize, 1 unregistered firearm. 7:28 a.m. Booked private charter flight under alias Marcus Webb. Departure 11:00 a.m. Van Nuys Executive Airport. Asset tracker update. $2.3 million transferred from Black Construction Group accounts to Shell Corporation, Vance Holdings at 3:42 a.m. Transaction currently pending due to asset freeze. $4.1 million in fraudulent loans taken against Voss Real Estate Group collateral. Loans personally guaranteed by Charles Voss without board approval. Additional note: Karina Vance has been contacted by Alistair. Message intercepted. Don't say anything. I'll send for you and the baby. Just stay quiet and wait for my call. He was still lying to her, still promising her a future, still using her as a backup plan in case Celine fell apart. He didn't know that Karina had already made a deal. My private investigator had visited her at 5 a.m. She was terrified, angry, willing to testify in exchange for immunity. The baby was her leverage now, not Alistair's. She had signed a sworn statement detailing every conversation, every transaction, every plan Alistair had shared with her. The document was sitting in my email, time-stamped and notarized. Alistair thought he was running. He was actually walking into a cage. Voss Real Estate Group occupied a 30-story tower in the financial district. All glass and steel and inherited arrogance. The Voss name was carved into the granite above the entrance like it had always been there. Like it would always be there. I walked through the revolving doors at 7:45 a.m. The lobby was already chaotic, assistants running, phones ringing, security guards looking confused. The receptionist, a young woman named Elaine who had always been polite to me even when the Voss family wasn't, looked up with wide eyes. "Mr. Black," she said. The board meeting isn't until 9. No one told me you were coming early." "I'm not here for the board meeting yet," I said. "I'm here to see Charles." "Is he in his office?" "He's been in his office since 6. He's not taking visitors." "He'll take me." I walked past her desk toward the executive elevator. One of the security guards moved to intercept me. I didn't slow down. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at him. "I'm the largest single shareholder of this company," I said. "In 90 minutes, I'll be the majority owner. You can let me through now. Or you can explain to your new boss why you blocked him from his own building. Your choice." The guard stepped back. The elevator doors closed. I rode to the 28th floor alone. Charles Voss's corner office was a monument to his ego. Photographs of him shaking hands with politicians, award plaques from real estate associations, a framed copy of Forbes with his face on the cover. 15 years ago, when the company was still solvent, the man himself sat behind a desk the size of a small car, his face gray, his tie loosened, a half-empty bottle of scotch in front of him despite the early hour. He looked up when I entered. For a long moment, he just stared. "You," he said finally. "You were supposed to be nothing. Celine told me you were nothing. A contractor with a small company and big dreams. She said you'd sign anything she put in front of you." "She was right," I said. "In another life, I did." "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. From this height, I could see Street, Catherine's hospital in the distance. The same view I'd had from the Black Holdings office. 2 towers, 2 empires, one man standing at the center of both. "I'm going to explain something to you, Charles, and I want you to listen very carefully." I turned to face him. 5 years ago, I realized that no matter how successful I became, your family would never respect me. No matter how much money I made, I would always be the man who married above his station. Celine reminded me of that constantly. You reminded me of that constantly. So I made a decision. I picked up a crystal paperweight from his desk, heavy, engraved with the Voss family crest. I turned it over in my hands. "I stopped trying to earn your respect and started buying your company." Charles's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Black Holdings was founded with one purpose. I continued. To acquire Voss Real Estate Group, not through a hostile takeover, not through public pressure, quietly, slowly, one shell company at a time, 200 of them, to be exact, each one holding a fraction of a percent, too small to notice, too spread out to track. By the time your board realized what was happening, it was already done. I set the paperweight down. Your daughter's betrayal accelerated my timeline, but it didn't change the outcome. You were always going to lose this company. The only question was when. Charles reached for the scotch. His hand was shaking. "The acquisition offer," he said. "You're not just buying the shares, you're offering to absorb the debt. $12 million in undisclosed debt. Loans you took out against company assets without board approval. Loans you personally guaranteed. If the company goes under, you go under. If I buy the company, I buy the debt. You walk away with nothing, but you don't go to prison for fraud." His face went from gray to white. "How do you know about that?" I know everything, Charles. I know about the loans. I know about the falsified financial statements. I know that Alastair Crane was planning to use that information to force you into a sale at a fraction of the company's value. Your daughter's lover was about to do to you what he did to me. The only difference is, I got there first. Charles stared at me for a long time. Then he did something I had never seen him do in 7 years of marriage. He poured a second glass of scotch and pushed it toward me. What do you want? Dorian, I want you at the board meeting. I want you to vote in favor of the acquisition. I want you to announce your retirement effective immediately. And I want you to cut off all financial support to Celine. Every account, every credit card, every trust fund. She gets nothing. And if I refuse, then the evidence of your fraud goes to the SEC. The evidence of Alastair's fraud goes to the FBI. And your daughter faces charges for forgery, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Your choice. Charles took a long drink. His hand was still shaking. She's my daughter, he said quietly. She's the woman who let her lover plan my murder while she held his child. She's the woman who forged my signature to steal my company. She's the woman who smiled while I died. You can stand with her, or you can stand aside. There is no third option. He didn't answer. I didn't need him to. At 8:30 a.m., the board members began arriving. I watched them from the window of the executive conference room. 12 men and women in expensive suits, all wearing the same expression, confusion mixed with barely concealed panic. They had received the acquisition offer at 7 a.m. They had been told an emergency meeting was called for 9 a.m. They had no idea who Black Holdings really was, or why their largest outside shareholder had suddenly decided to make a move. They would find out soon enough. My phone buzzed. A message from my attorney. Attorney, Alastair just tried to board a flight at Van Nuys. We flagged his passport. Airport security detained him. FBI is en route. They have the evidence package. Dorian, hold him there. Don't let them transfer him to federal custody yet. I want him at the hospital when this ends. Attorney, the hospital? Why? Dorian, because that's where I died. And that's where he's going to understand what he did. I put my phone away and turned back to the window. The board members were all inside now. Charles had joined them, looking like a man walking to his own execution. The conference room door was closed. The clock on the wall read 8:52 a.m. 8 minutes. The system interface flickered. Revenge rating update. 52%. Critical threshold approaching. Advice. Reveal identity at the moment of maximum impact. Let them underestimate you first. Then let them understand. I didn't need the advice. I had been planning this moment for 5 years. I knew exactly when to strike. At 9:00 a.m., I opened the conference room door. 12 heads turned toward me. 12 faces registered. Recognition, then confusion, then disbelief. Dorian, Miriam Holt, the board's senior member, stood up from her chair. What are you doing here? This is a closed meeting, shareholders only. I know, I said. I'm the largest one. I walked to the head of the table. Charles was sitting in the chairman's seat. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just looked at me with hollow eyes. I'm going to make this simple, I said, addressing the board. My name is Dorian Black, for the past 7 years. You've known me as Charles Voss's son-in-law, the contractor, the small businessman, the man Celine Voss married and then regretted. None of that matters anymore. I placed a document on the table. This is a certificate of ownership. Black Holdings, a company I founded 5 years ago and control entirely, has acquired 42% of Voss Real Estate Group's voting shares as of this morning. We have signed purchase agreements for an additional 12% from minority shareholders. That gives us 54%, a controlling interest. The room erupted, voices overlapping, questions shouted. Miriam Holt demanding to see proof. Harold Chun, the company's legal counsel, reaching for the document. Charles sitting motionless while his empire crumbled around him. I let them shout for 30 seconds. Then I raised my hand. The acquisition is not negotiable. It is complete. What is negotiable is what happens next. I am offering to buy out all remaining shareholders at fair market value. I am offering to absorb the company's debt, including $12 million in undisclosed liabilities that this board has been hiding from its own auditors. Silence. Absolute. Complete silence. Miriam Holt turned to Charles. 12 million. Charles. What is he talking about? Charles didn't answer. He couldn't. His hands were flat on the table, his knuckles white. His eyes fixed on the polished wood in front of him. I continued. In addition to the acquisition, I am announcing a full restructuring of Voss Real Estate Group, effective immediately. Charles Voss will resign as chairman and CEO. All members of the Voss family will be removed from executive positions. The company will be rebranded under the Black Holdings umbrella. Any employee who has been complicit in financial fraud will be referred to federal authorities. How dare you? It was Patricia Voss, Celine's aunt, her voice shaking with rage. You can't just walk in here and dismantle a family legacy because your wife left you. I looked at her. Your family legacy is built on fraud, sustained by cover-ups, and about to collapse under the weight of its own corruption. I'm not dismantling it. I'm salvaging what's left, and I'm not doing it because my wife left me. I paused. I'm doing it because your family tried to have me killed. Patricia's face went slack. Miriam Holt sat down slowly. Harold Chin took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. Celine and Alastair Crane conspired to transfer my company's assets to shell corporations controlled by Mr. Crane. They forged my signature on legal documents. They attempted to frame me for embezzlement. And in another version of events, a version I barely survived, they succeeded in having me murdered. The evidence for all of this has been submitted to federal authorities. Arrests are being made as we speak. I looked around the room. This meeting is over. The acquisition is final. If you want to retain your positions in the restructured company, you will submit to a full audit of your financial activities over the past 7 years. If you are clean, you stay. If you are not, you will be asked to resign. If you resist, you will be referred for prosecution. I picked up the certificate of ownership and tucked it back into my briefcase. Any questions? No one spoke. Good. I have one more stop to make. I walked out of the conference room and didn't look back. St. Catherine's Hospital looked different in the morning light, smaller, less imposing. At night, it had been a fortress of fluorescent lights and antiseptic dread. In the daylight, it was just a building, bricks and glass and automatic doors that opened without judgment. I walked through those doors at 10:17 a.m. The maternity ward was on the 4th floor. I knew the way. In my last life, I never made it past the stairwell. This time, I took the elevator. The nurse's station was quiet. The woman behind the desk looked up, and I saw recognition flash across her face. She had probably seen my photo in Celine's room. The husband who wasn't the father, the man who had been replaced. Sir, she said carefully, visiting hours don't start until... I'm not here to visit. I'm here to collect evidence for a federal investigation. Celine Voss is in room 412. Is Alastair Crane on this floor? The nurse blinked. Mr. Crane left early this morning. He hasn't come back. I know. I just wanted to make sure he hadn't returned. What about Karina Vance? She was here earlier. The nurse's face changed. The recognition shifted into something else. Wariness. Maybe a little fear. I can't discuss other patients. She's not a patient. She's the biological mother of the child Celine Voss gave birth to. She has legal rights to that child, and she will be here within the hour to exercise them. I suggest you prepare the paperwork. I turned and walked toward room 412. The door was partially open. I could hear soft crying from inside. I pushed it open. Celine was sitting up in bed, her blonde hair tangled, her face blotchy and swollen from hours of tears. She was holding the baby that wasn't hers. Wasn't mine, wasn't Alastair's in the way she believed, the baby she had carried for 9 months, believing it was the ultimate proof of her love for another man. When she looked up and saw me, the crying stopped. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. She looked older than I remembered. The perfect composure she had always maintained, the careful makeup, the controlled expressions, the practiced elegance, was gone. In its place was something raw, broken, desperate. Dorian, she whispered. It's true. I had them run the test again. It's true. He's not mine. I don't understand. I carried him. I gave birth to him. How is he not mine? The embryo was implanted. I said, Karina Vance's egg, Alastair's sperm. You were the surrogate. You were never the mother. Celine flinched like I had slapped her. He told me the baby was ours. He told me we would be a family. He said as soon as you were out of the picture. He said whatever he needed to say to make you cooperate. You were a tool, Celine, a means to an end. He needed a Voss family heir, or at least something that looked like one. You gave him access to your father. to your family's company, to everything he needed to complete his takeover. And when he was done, he would have discarded you the same way you discarded me. No. She shook her head violently. He loves me. He's loved me since college, he said. He said the same thing to Karina, and to a woman named Danielle in Chicago, and to a woman named Rachel in Seattle. You're not special, Celine. You're just the one with the richest father. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo. Alistair and Karina, taken 6 months ago, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder, both of them smiling at the camera like they didn't have a care in the world. Celine stared at the screen. Her breathing became shallow, rapid. When was this taken? Last April, while you were 2 months pregnant and telling me you needed space to figure out our marriage. While you were already planning to divorce me and take everything I owned. He was with her. He was always with her. The sound Celine made was something between a sob and a scream. The baby stirred in her arms. She looked down at him. The child she had believed was hers. The child she had betrayed her husband to create. And I saw the exact moment her heart shattered. Who is his mother? She whispered. Karina Vance, Alistair's secretary. She's on her way here right now. She wants her son back. No. Celine clutched the baby tighter. No. I carried him. I gave birth to him. He's mine. Legally. You're a surrogate. You have no parental rights. The biological mother is Karina. The biological father is Alistair. You are neither. The baby began to cry. Celine rocked him automatically, her body still operating on instinct even as her mind collapsed. Dorian, she said, and her voice cracked. What have I done? I walked to the window and looked out. The same view I'd had from the Black Holdings office. The same view I'd had from Charles's corner suite. The city stretched out below, indifferent to the destruction happening inside this room. You threw away a husband who loved you. You threw away a marriage that could have been real. You threw away your family, your reputation, your future, and for what? For a man who used you as an incubator. I turned back to face her. In my weaker moments, I might have forgiven you in another life. I did forgive you. I signed the papers. I let you take everything, and I died alone on a hospital floor while you smiled at the man who killed me. Celine's face went white. Died. Dorian, what are you? You wouldn't understand. You don't need to. All you need to know is this. The man who planned my death is about to be arrested. Your father's company is no longer your father's. As of this morning, I own Voss Real Estate Group, your trust. Funds are frozen. Your accounts are closed. The divorce will proceed under the terms of our prenuptial agreement, specifically the infidelity clause you never bothered to read. You will leave this marriage with nothing. I walked toward the door. And Celine. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. The crying baby clutched against her chest. Thank you for sending that message last night. You reminded me who I really am, and you gave me exactly the motivation I needed to become him. I left the room. Behind me, Celine began to scream. The hospital hallway stretched out in front of me. The same hallway, the same linoleum, the same fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But this time, I was walking. This time, I was breathing. This time, I was alive. The system interface flickered in my vision. Truth unlock. Usage 3 of 3. Final entry. Host. Dorian Black. Hidden truth. The assassination attempt that killed the host in the previous timeline was arranged by Alistair Crane using funds transferred from Black Construction Group's accounts. The hired assailant, a former pharmaceutical employee with access to restricted substances, was paid $50,000. The payment was processed through Vance Holdings at 11:23 p.m. on November 3rd. The assassin is currently employed as a janitor at St. Catherine's Hospital. Name, Martin Cross. Currently on shift. Location, 4th floor, East Wing. I stopped walking. I knew that name. Martin Cross. He had been working at the hospital when I died. I remembered him now. A thin man with gray hair and a limp, pushing a mop bucket past me in the stairwell. I remembered thinking he looked out of place. I remembered him pausing, turning, reaching into his pocket. The needle. I looked down the hallway toward the East Wing. A janitor's cart was parked outside a supply closet. The door was partially open. I could hear someone moving inside. The system interface flickered again. New objective. Confront the assassin. Additional note. Federal agents are en route to apprehend Alistair Crane. Martin Cross is not yet aware of the investigation. He will run if he sees law enforcement. Approach with caution. I didn't approach with caution. I walked straight toward the supply closet, my footsteps echoing on the linoleum. The door swung open. A thin man with gray hair and a limp looked up from a shelf of cleaning supplies. His eyes met mine. Recognition flickered, not of my face. He had only seen me for a few seconds in the stairwell, and that hadn't happened yet in this timeline. But of something else, something deeper, the recognition of prey, the recognition of a target. Then confusion. I was supposed to be dead, and I was standing in front of him. Martin Cross, I said. He froze. I know about the money. I know about Alistair Crane. I know about the $50,000. I know about the insulin. I know everything. His hand moved toward his pocket. The same motion, the same reach. Don't. My voice was calm, quiet, not threatening, just certain. Federal agents are on their way to arrest Alistair Crane. He will tell them everything. He will name you. He will trade your name for a reduced sentence. The only question is whether you're holding a weapon when they arrive. His hand stopped. How do you know? He whispered. Because I've already lived this day once, and this time, I came back with better information. I took a step closer. The child in room 412 is not Celine Voss's. The man who paid you is not the child's father. Everything you thought you knew about this situation is wrong. You're not a killer executing a contract. You're a pawn in a scheme so much bigger than you. And you're about to take the fall for all of it. Martin Cross stared at me. His hand slowly came out of his pocket. Empty. What do you want? I want you to walk out of this hospital and turn yourself in. I want you to give a full confession. I want you to testify against Alistair Crane. If you do that, I will make sure the prosecution knows you cooperated. If you don't, I let the sentence hang. You'll run, you'll hide, and they'll find you, because I found you, and I'm not even looking. The janitor's shoulders sagged. He looked at the floor. He looked at his hands. He looked at the supply closet like it was the last familiar place he would ever see. I needed the money, he said. My daughter. She's sick. I couldn't afford. I don't care. My voice was flat, cold. I don't care why you did it. I don't care about your circumstances. In another version of my life, you killed me. You stuck a needle in my neck and left me to die on this floor. Whatever happens to you now is more mercy than you deserve. I turned away. Walk out of the hospital. Turn left. Walk 3 blocks to the federal building. Ask for Agent Reeves. Tell him everything. If you're not there by noon, I'll send them to find you. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I heard his footsteps retreating down the hallway, away from me, toward the exit. I stood alone. In the hallway for a long moment. The same hallway, the same floor, the same fluorescent lights, but I was still breathing. The system interface pulsed gently in my vision. Revenge progress, 78%. Remaining targets, Alistair Crane, awaiting arrest. Celine Voss, psychological collapse complete. Charles Voss, financial ruin confirmed. Final stage, full circle. In this where it began, I knew what that meant. I walked to the window at the end of the hallway and looked down. The hospital's main entrance was 3 floors below. Police vehicles were pulling up. I could see federal agents in dark jackets moving toward the doors. Alistair would be here soon. The FBI had been instructed to bring him back to the hospital. I wanted him to see this place. I wanted him to stand in the same hallway where he had planned my death. I wanted him to understand that everything he had built was gone. My phone buzzed. Attorney. Alistair is in custody. They're transporting him to St. Catherine's now. ETA, 25 minutes. Dorian, bring him to the 4th floor. I'll be waiting. I put my phone away and leaned against the windowsill. 25 minutes. I had waited a lifetime for this. I could wait 25 more minutes. System notification. Timeline deviation recorded. Original timeline. Host dies on hospital floor at 12:34 a.m. Current timeline. Host stands alive on hospital floor at 11:02 a.m. Deviation magnitude. Maximum. Additional note. The Black Archive system is recording this file for permanent storage. Upon completion, this revenge file will be added to the archive's active collection. Future hosts may access this file as a reference for their own rebirth. 1 target remaining. End notification. The elevator doors opened at 11:23 a.m. 2 federal agents stepped out first, their faces blank and professional. Behind them, wrists cuffed in front of his body, came Alistair Crane. He looked smaller than I remembered. In my last life, He had been a giant, a force of nature, the man who had taken everything from me, who had stood beside my wife while I died, who had smiled at her with perfect white teeth while my heart stopped beating 50 feet away. Now he was just a man in handcuffs. His expensive suit was rumpled. His hair was disheveled. His eyes darted around the hallway like a trapped animal looking for an exit that didn't exist. When he saw me, he stopped walking. "You," he said. "Me." The federal agents flanked him on either side. One of them, Agent Reeves, the lead investigator on the case, nodded at me. "Mr. Black, we have him secured. The evidence you provided was more than sufficient. 5 cities, dozens of victims. The U.S. Attorney's Office is preparing charges for wire fraud, securities fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other counts I can't remember off the top of my head. Thank you. Agent Reeves, I need 5 minutes with him." The agent hesitated. "He hasn't been processed yet, technically." 5 minutes. "Then he's all yours." Agent Reeves looked at his partner. Some silent communication passed between them. Then they stepped back, positioning themselves at either end of the hallway, close enough to intervene, far enough to give the illusion of privacy. Alistair stood in the middle of the hallway, the same floor, the same linoleum that had been cold against my dying face. "Do you know where we are?" I asked. He looked around. "A hospital hallway. What kind of question is that?" "This is the 4th floor of St. Catherine's Hospital. The maternity ward is at the end of this corridor. Celine is in room 412. She just found out the baby isn't hers." His jaw tightened, the only crack in his composure. "This is also the floor where you planned to have me killed, in another version of events. A version you'll never understand. You succeeded. Martin Cross met me in the stairwell. He injected me with insulin. I died right here, on this floor, while you and Celine celebrated the birth of a child that wasn't even hers." Alistair stared at me. "You're insane. Martin Cross is on his way to the federal building right now. He's going to confess. He's going to name you. The payment you made through Vance Holdings was tracked. The $50,000 is sitting in his account, still traceable. You didn't even try to hide it. Alistair, you were that confident." His face went pale. "That's the problem with people like you," I continued. "You think you're smarter than everyone else. You think you can lie and cheat and steal, and nobody will ever catch up. And for a long time, you were right. 5 cities, 5 different identities, 5 different women. You left a trail of destruction across half the country, and no one ever stopped you." I took a step closer. "But you made one mistake." "What mistake?" "You chose me as your 6th victim." Alistair tried to laugh. It came out wrong. Choked, nervous. You're nobody, a small-time contractor who married above his station. The only reason I even noticed you was because of Celine. You were never the target. Dorian, you were just in the way." "Exactly," I said. "That's exactly what I wanted you to think." I pulled out my phone and showed him a document. The certificate of ownership for Voss Real Estate Group. His eyes scanned the text. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something that looked a lot like fear. "Black Holdings," he whispered. "I've heard that name. I could never figure out who owned it. Now you know. You own Voss Real Estate. I own 54% of it. Charles Voss has resigned. The board has accepted my acquisition offer. The company is being restructured under Black Holdings' umbrella. Everything you were trying to steal, the company, the assets, the family fortune, is mine now. It was always mine. You just didn't know it." Alistair's composure cracked. "Just a hairline fracture, but I saw it." "You're lying." "I don't lie, Alistair. I'm not you." I put my phone away and looked him directly in the eyes. "You spent 3 years planning to steal my company. I spent 5 years planning to own yours. You used my wife as a tool to get close to her family's assets. I used my wife's own arrogance as a shield while I built an empire she never bothered to notice. Every dinner she spent ignoring me. I was on my laptop, structuring shell companies. Every weekend she spent with you. I was meeting with investors she didn't know existed. She thought I was pathetic. She thought I was weak. She never once asked what I was really doing." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "And now she's in a hospital room crying over a baby that isn't hers. Her father has lost his company. Her lover is about to spend the rest of his life in federal prison. And I'm standing here, alive, in the exact spot where you planned to kill me." Alistair's hands were shaking. The handcuffs rattled. "This isn't over," he said. "I have lawyers. I have connections. I'll be out on bail before the week is over. No, you won't. Your assets are frozen, every account, every shell company, every hidden safety deposit box, the money you tried to use to flee the country this morning. All of it is locked. You don't have a cent to your name. And the connections you think you have, they're already being questioned. Nobody wants to be associated with you right now. Alistair, you're toxic. I let that sink in. Karina has already made a deal. She's going to testify against you in exchange for immunity. She's also going to take custody of the child, her child, the child you used Celine to carry, the child you were going to use as leverage against the Voss family. Do you know what the worst part is? I didn't wait for him to answer. It would have worked if I hadn't been here. It would have worked. Celine would have divorced me. Charles would have been too panicked about his hidden debts to think clearly. You would have walked into Voss Real Estate Group with a baby in your arms and a sob story about family and legacy, and they would have handed you everything. But I was here, and I was ready. Alistair looked at the floor, at the walls, at the ceiling. Anywhere but at me. What do you want? He said finally. You've already won. You've taken everything. What do you want from me? I want you to understand. I want you to stand in this hallway, the exact spot where you planned my death, and understand that you lost. Not because you made a mistake, not because you got unlucky, but because from the very beginning, you were never as smart as you thought you were. I stepped back. I also want you to know that Celine is waiting in her room. She knows about Karina. She knows about the other women. She knows the baby isn't hers, and she wants to see you. She wants to look you in the eye one last time before they take you away. Alistair's face contorted. I don't want to see her. I don't care what you want. I nodded to Agent Reeves. The agent stepped forward and took Alistair by the arms. One stop before processing, I said to Agent Reeves. Room 412. It won't take long. The door to room 412 was still partially open. Celine was sitting in the same position I had left her, upright in bed, face blotchy, eyes red, but the baby was no longer in her arms. Karina Vance had arrived 10 minutes ago. She was standing by the window now, holding her son, her face unreadable. She was younger than Celine, dark-haired, quiet. She looked at Alistair when he walked in, and her expression didn't change. No anger, no pain, just emptiness. You, Celine said when she saw Alistair. You did this to me. Alistair stood just inside the doorway. The federal agents flanked him. His cuffs glinted under the fluorescent lights. Celine, he started. Don't say my name. Don't say anything. Her voice was raw, hoarse from screaming. I gave you everything. My marriage, my reputation, my body. I carried a child for you. I was ready to destroy my life for you. And the whole time, you were with her. She pointed at Karina. Was any of it real? Any of it at all? Alistair didn't answer. He just stared at her with flat, dead eyes. The mask was gone, the charming smile, the gentle voice. All of it stripped away. What was left was just a predator who had been caught. He can't answer that, I said from the doorway. Because none of it was real. He doesn't love you. He never loved you. He doesn't love Karina. He doesn't love anyone. He's a con artist who preys on women with access to money and power. You were his fifth target. Karina was his sixth. There would have been a seventh and an eighth, and as many as it took, until someone finally caught him. Celine turned to me. Her face was a ruin of grief and rage. Why are you here, Dorian? You've already destroyed me. What more do you want? I want you to see what you chose. I want you to stand in this room, with this man, with the child that isn't yours, and understand exactly what you threw away. I know what I threw away. No, you don't. You still think this is about me, about our marriage. It's not. This is about you, about the choices you made, about the person you chose to become. I walked into the room and stood at the foot of her bed. You told me once that I wasn't good enough for you, that I was holding you back, that you settled for me because you couldn't have the life you really wanted. Do you remember that? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. We both remembered. The life you really wanted was with him. And this is what that life looks like. Handcuffs, federal charges, a child you carried for 9 months that isn't yours, a family company you'll never inherit, a reputation that will never recover. This is what you chose, Celine. This is what you destroyed our marriage to have. I turned to Karina. Mrs. Vance, I've arranged for you to have a room in a private facility outside the city, security, medical care, legal support. Everything you need for yourself and your son. The paperwork is already done. A car is waiting downstairs. Karina nodded. She didn't look at Alistair. She didn't look at Celine. She just held her baby and walked out of the room. Wait, Celine said. Wait, that's not your baby. I said, it was never your baby. You were a surrogate. You have no legal rights. You have no moral rights. You have nothing. Celine's face crumpled. The last pillar of her identity collapsed. She had been a wife, and she had destroyed that. She had been a mother, and that had been an illusion. She had been a Voss, and her family had been stripped of everything. What was left? Nothing, just a woman. In a hospital bed, alone, with nothing and no one. Take him away, I said to the agents. They turned Alistair toward the door. For one moment, he looked back at Celine. His lips moved like he wanted to say something. Then he thought better of it and walked out. I followed them into the hallway. The procession moved down the corridor. Alistair in the center, agents on either side, me a few paces behind. We passed the spot where I had died in my last life. The same stretch of linoleum, the same fluorescent lights, the same cold November air seeping through the windows. Stop, I said. The agents paused. Alistair looked at me, confused. This is the spot, I said. Right here. This is where you killed me. I didn't kill anyone. Not in this timeline. But in the one I remember. You paid Martin Cross $50,000 to inject me with insulin. I died on this floor. My face was pressed against this linoleum. The last thing I saw was you and Celine smiling at each other through the maternity ward doors. I crouched down and touched the floor, cold, hard, unforgiving. I died here, and now I'm alive. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a federal prison, Alistair, and every single day, you're going to remember this moment, this hallway, this floor, the moment you realized you lost everything. I stood up. Take him. They pulled him away. He stumbled. His expensive shoes squeaked on the linoleum. And then he was gone, through the double doors, into the elevator, out of my life. Forever. I stood in the empty hallway for a long time. The sun had risen fully now. Light streamed through the windows at the end of the corridor, the same windows I had looked through while dying, the same view of the city that had been indifferent to my death. Everything was different now. Everything was the same. The system interface flickered in my vision. Revenge complete. Rating, perfect. Target status, Alistair Crane. Indiana federal custody. Awaiting trial. Estimated sentence, 35 years to life. Celine Voss, hospitalized. Psychological collapse confirmed. Divorce proceedings initiated. Prenuptial infidelity clause activated. She receives nothing. Charles Voss, removed from Voss Real Estate Group, financially ruined. Under investigation for fraud. Martin Cross, turned himself in. Full confession given. Cooperating with federal prosecutors. Assets recovered. Black Construction Group, 100% ownership restored. All stolen assets frozen and returned. Voss Real Estate Group, 54% controlling interest acquired. Full restructuring underway. Black Holdings, all. Permissions unlocked. Permanent access granted. Final reward unlocked. The Black Archive key. You are now a permanent archivist of the Reborn archive. When a new betrayal is recorded, you will be notified. When a new file opens, you will witness it. The archive does not forget, and now, neither will you. I dismissed the notification. I didn't need a system to tell me I had one. I could feel it in every breath, every heartbeat. Every step I took toward the elevator. The hospital lobby was quiet when I walked through it. A few nurses, a few patients. No one looked at me. No one knew what had just happened on the 4th floor. I pushed through the automatic doors and stepped outside. The cold air hit my face. It felt clean, new, like the first breath of a different life. My phone buzzed. A message from my attorney. Attorney, all paperwork is filed. Divorce will be finalized within 30 days. Voss Real Estate acquisition is complete. Press release goes out this afternoon. Anything else? Dorian. Nothing. It's done. I put my phone away and looked up at the sky. Clear blue. No clouds. The kind of sky that makes you forget winter is coming. A shadow moved in the corner of my vision. I turned. There, perched on the low wall at the edge of the hospital entrance, was a black cat. Not a stray. Too still, too deliberate. Its fur was impossibly dark, absorbing the sunlight instead of reflecting it. Its eyes were pale gold, ancient and unblinking. It watched me. I walked toward it. The cat didn't move. You, I said. You're the one who opened the file. The cat tilted its head. When it spoke, its voice was low and calm, carrying no emotion and all the weight in the world. Every betrayal leaves a signature. Every signature becomes a file. You are file number 2847 in the Reborn archive, and you have closed your case with a perfect rating. That is rare, Dorian Black, rare and worthy of note. What are you? I am Milo, the archivist, the one who opens the files, the one who closes them. I do not judge. I do not intervene. I only record. Tonight, another file will open, another betrayal will surface, another man will wake up in the moment of his greatest defeat and realize that death was not the end. The cat's eyes gleamed. Your file will remain in the archive, a permanent record, a reference for those who come after. Some of them will read it. Some of them will learn from it. All of them will know that a man who was supposed to die on a hospital floor instead rose up and took back everything. Milo raised one paw and drew it through the air. A faint shimmer followed the motion, like heat rising off asphalt. Your file is closed, Dorian Black, but the archive never sleeps. Neither do the betrayed, and neither, I suspect, will you. The cat turned and leaped off the wall, but instead of landing on the pavement, it simply vanished. One moment there, the next moment gone. Only the faintest shimmer of golden light remained where it had stood. I stood alone in the cold November air. My phone buzzed one more time. Not a message this time. A notification from the system. I looked at the screen for a long moment. Then I put the phone away and walked toward my car. The city stretched out in front of me. Different now. Mine now. Every building, every street, every company that had once belonged to the Voss family. All of it. Under my control. I had died on a cold hospital floor. I had woken up on a cold hospital bench. And in 8 days, I had reclaimed my company, destroyed my enemies, and taken everything they had. Not bad for a man who was supposed to be nothing. I got into my car and drove away from Street Catherine's Hospital. I didn't look back. The Reborn archive, file number 2847 closed, comma. Rating, perfect, comma. The archive never sleeps.